I was packing my bag for a shoot the other day, and as I was packing away my Sony A7IV that I'm shooting on right now, which is still my go-to camera for all things photo and filmmaking, and I realised that camera's nearly 4 years old. October 2021 that thing came out. And I think since then Sony have released like 10 new cameras, not to mention all the other camera brands. And I was wondering, is the Sony A7IV still worth it in 2025, 4 years on? I kind of think so. So now you've got that answer and you want to leave this video, fair play, don't blame you. Just hit the subscribe button before you go. Would really appreciate it. But if you do want to stick around and see if this camera's for you, then first you've got to ask yourself, what are you going to be using it for? I feel most cameras today fall into three categories. There's your video dominant cameras, your photo dominant cameras, and your middle ground hybrids, best of both worlds cameras. I feel the Sony A7IV still stands out in that middle category. So I got the A7IV about three and a half years ago now, upgraded from the A7 III, which in its time itself was a fantastic camera. And to be fair, the photos still hold up today. The video was a little bit lacking, so that's why I upgraded to the 4. And I've used this camera for a number of photo shoots and video shoots, from commercial campaigns to corporate headshots, corporate talking head stuff, a little bit of sports, a bit of everything really, and it has held its own. So some of the things I love about this camera, starting off with like form factor, especially from upgrading from the Sony A7 III, the A7IV has that flip out screen. I think it was the first, maybe it was the second Sony camera to have a fully articulating screen, which when you're coming from the A7 III that only had that little weird ledge flippy screen thing, it was useless. This thing was a game changer. Canon's had this in their cameras for ages, and it took Sony a while to catch up. But they eventually did it, and they've implemented it in pretty much all of their cameras since the release of the A7IV. And because this camera is classed as a hybrid camera, it's really good for photo and video. They've got a really handy little switch dial on the top that lets you switch between photo and video super quickly. When you're on a shoot, it comes in really handy. Sensor wise, for video, this thing has a 4K oversampled sensor, which is essentially a 6K image sensor downsampled to a 4K image. This basically means you've got more information per pixel, giving you arguably a sharper image, and it holds more color information as well, so when you want to color grade it, it's a lot easier. And with the 10-bit 4:2 color profile, especially in S-Log3, it makes it an absolute dream to color grade. I also think this was the first, if not the first, camera to have the Sony S-Cinetone picture profile in it. So if you weren't used to color grading, or you had super quick turnaround times, you could just take the image straight from camera and it looked great. You didn't need to do any color grading or anything to it really, which opened it up for a lot more people to use that weren't used to that kind of professional color grading workflow. As for photo quality, this camera has a 33 megapixel full frame sensor. Now, I'm not a specs kind of guy, but yes, the higher number of megapixels, the better your image will be. It'll be sharper, there'll be a lot more information there. You can reframe it, recrop it, however you want to use it. It just gives you a lot more flexibility. The downside to that is file sizes are larger, which can be a little bit annoying, but I think the A7IV's kind of found that nice middle ground. It's not excessive that your file sizes are enormous, and it's not too small that you lose the image quality. Does that make sense? And I will confess, the images from this camera are amazing. I love it. Now, another point I want to make is about autofocus. I do a lot of run and gun style shooting where I use autofocus a lot, and it saves so much time and hassle. You can rely on it 95% of the time, I'd say. However, I was shooting a client in a gym the other day, and there was massive murals on the walls, one of which was him, which was a little bit weird, but sometimes the autofocus would jump from him to the faces on the walls. But a way I got around this was when it was actually on his face, I just switched the lens to manual focus, held it there until he moved off again, and then just switched back to autofocus, and it kind of seemed to work. So I'm not going to argue too much about that. But as much as I do love this camera, there are a few quirks in there. Some that I've not really experienced myself, or I don't find that big of an issue, but maybe you guys will. The first one being the 4K crop at 60 frames a second. Now, I don't really shoot at 60 frames a second. I'm more of a 24 frames a second kind of guy. But when you do shoot in 4K at 60, it does have a slight image crop. Now, when I say I've not noticed it, it's when I do shoot at 4K 60, because I'm only using one camera, I've got nothing really to compare it to, so I don't notice it. But a lot of people, this has kind of niggled at them, and I can understand why, but again, I don't really have that issue. Now, one thing I have experienced when shooting in 4K 60 is overheating. Now, this has only happened to me once, and it was shooting for long periods of time. The camera flashed up the kind of temperature warning, and eventually it shut off. But I did have a little bit of a trick to kind of cool the camera down a little bit. Sometimes changing out your battery can just add that little bit of cool to it, to kind of bring that temperature down so your camera can last a bit longer. But like I say, I've never experienced it at shooting 24 frames a second, which is 99% of the time with me anyway. Now, one thing that did bug me when I first got this camera is the video codecs. I don't know who came up with the names or the system, but it's a complete other language, and there's no guidance as to what's good, what's bad, what's going to eat up all your storage, what's not going to play on your computer. There's no guidance whatsoever. You've just got to jump in with both feet and try it and see if it works. Because when I first got this camera, I went out on a test shoot with my friend Dave. He was shooting a Volvo. I thought, what better way to test out the video quality of my new camera? So went, got a couple of shots, brought it back to the computer. Would it play back? Hell no. I must have picked like the most ridiculous codec there was in this camera, and it wouldn't play back at all. So I started panicking. I spent so many nights on Google trying to figure out what the hell was going on. Luckily, I did find a video by Jason Morris, who takes the A7IV codecs, breaks them all down, tells you what ones are used for which and what ones are the best ones. So I'll leave that link down in the description below if you want to check that out. It was an absolute lifesaver. So if by any chance, Jason, you're watching this video, thank you. So there are some newer similar cameras out there to the A7IV. The main one I see really being the Sony A7C2, which I think is pretty much the exact same internals as the A7IV, but as a downside for me, the form factor is a bit smaller and there's less button customization on it. Also, the viewfinder is a little bit smaller, so if you like taking photos with the viewfinder up to your eye, that might be an issue for you. The FX30 is also out there, but that leans a little bit more towards the video side of things, and it is a lot smaller sensor. It's not a full frame sensor, so if you're really into that shallow depth of field, you're going to struggle to get that with the FX30 compared to the A7IV. I think the A7S3 as well is out there, but it costs like $1,000 more. Again, more video based. It's only got a 12 megapixel sensor, but it is a lot better in low light filming wise than the A7IV. So again, it comes down to what you're going to be shooting. Are you going to be shooting photo? Are you going to be shooting video? Or are you going to be like me and want the best of both worlds? And 4 years on, I still think this is the way to go. And I guess that's why I'm still using it. It really does still hold its own today. And like I say, I've used this camera for paid commercial work, for personal projects, and the usability and quality of this camera has been great. You can rig this thing up, you can strip it down. I've strapped this thing to cars. It's pretty much handled anything that I could have thrown at it. So yeah, if you're a photographer, filmmaker, content creator, small YouTuber, just starting out, looking to invest in a camera that can do it all, I cannot recommend the Sony A7IV enough. Yes, it does have its flaws in 2025, but it's still one of the best cameras out there. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Would love to hear them. I know I'm not a specs guy, so maybe I've got some things wrong. It'd be good to correct me. And yeah, as always guys, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Hit the like button too. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Cheers guys. Bye.